This is page 5 of Acuity Test Form B. These are questions 26 through 29. On the bottom of the pages it says pages 11 and 12 of 19. Please remember to answer your questions on the small strip of paper. Do not write on the packet. Question 26. Which of these is the best description of a genetically dominant trait? A. Any inherited characteristic possessed by the dominating organism in a group. B. Any acquired characteristic possessed by the dominating organism in a group. Remember, this is asking for the best description of a genetically dominant trait. C. An inherited characteristic that is always expressed when its allele is present. Or D. Is D the best description of a genetically dominant trait? An acquired characteristic that is always expressed when its allele is present. 27. A marble rolls along a curved track. The student uses a spreadsheet program to plot the kinetic and potential energy of the marble. So as you look at the graph, you can see that the potential energy is going down as the kinetic energy is going up. The potential energy starts at about 400, and at the first peak, the potential energy is about 300. The kinetic energy is about 300 at the first peak for kinetic, and the potential energy is about 100. It ends with the kinetic energy at about 100 to 150, and the kinetic energy at about 250. So, the question is, how could the student modify the graph to show that the total energy of the marble is conserved? A. He could add more time to the axis to plot more data on the energy of the marble. B. He could add a new data line to the graph that equals the sum of the potential and kinetic energy. What's the best way to show that the total energy of the marble is conserved? C. He could add best fit lines to determine the average energy of the marble at different segments of the motion. Or D. He could add bars to the graph to show the distance between the potential and kinetic energy curves at each second. How can he modify the graph to show that the total energy of the marble is conserved? Question 28. A classroom conducted 4 experiments. The results from each experiment were recorded in the table. So I'm actually going to read the options first, and then I'm going to read the table. So it says, which of these best describes the results? A. Experiments 1, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes. B. Experiments 2, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes. C. Experiments 1, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes. Or experiments 2, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes. So which of these best describes the results? So, experiment 1. The reactant is an acid. Observations before the experiment was a white round tablet. Procedure was the tablet was crushed. Observations after experiment, small white pieces. In experiment 2, the reactants were antacid and water. Before the experiment, the antacid was white round tablet, and water was a clear liquid. The procedure in this case was the antacid was dropped into the water. The observations after the experiment was water started to fizz and the antacid tablet disappeared. Remember, we're trying to figure out what best describes the results. Is it that 1, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes? Is it that 2, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes? Is it that 1, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes? Or is it that 2, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes? Experiment 3. The reactants are milk and vinegar. Before the experiment, milk was a white liquid and vinegar was a clear liquid. The procedure was vinegar was added to milk. After the experiment, the solution became lumpy. Experiment 4. Silver nitrate solution and salt water were the reactants. Before the experiment, they were both clear liquids. So silver nitrate solution is a clear liquid and salt water is a clear liquid. The procedure was salt water was added to silver nitrate solution. And the observations after the experiment was white crystals form and sank to the bottom of the tube. So, where experiments 1, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes, that's A. Or was it B, experiments 2, 3, and 4 resulted in physical changes? Or was it C, experiments 1, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes? Or was it D, experiments 2, 3, and 4 resulted in chemical changes? 29. Earth maintains its orbit around the sun because of gravity, and gravity holds us to Earth. When humans visited the moon, however, they bounced when they walked because there was less force holding them to the surface. What can be concluded about the force of gravity? Is it A, Earth is the only object in the universe that is affected by gravity? Is it B, gravitational forces are equal throughout the universe? Is it C, gravity is a constant, but the rules of gravity differ on other planets? Or is it D, some places have more or less gravity, but the rules of gravity are universal? This ends page 5. Go ahead and go on to the next section.